Today we're going over Mthrship Mega Celestial Divinity. So here is what we have before us. It's beautiful. It's not the like Mthrship black lacquer packaging, and that's I think a good thing, because when I first heard that they were releasing an 18-pan palette, I was like, this thing is gonna be either less than regular Mthrship's with like cheaper packaging, or it's gonna be just crazy expensive. I'm really glad that it was the former. It's kind of like that cardboard feel. It does have a mirror inside. This is what the palette looks like. We have a lot of lovely colors. Something to keep in mind here is that if you're really into mattes, this is most likely not going to be your palette. Or maybe it's the palette that makes you discover you love shimmers and things like that, right? Because there's only like 3 mattes in there, and then the rest are shimmers and metallics and like sparkly and all of that stuff, which I'm super into. Just keep it in mind. I'm pretty sure it's $78, so it comes out to like 80 something dollars with tax, which is still expensive for a palette. For sure, hands down. It is cheaper than her regular Mthrship's, but you know, when you're paying for Pat McGrath, you're paying for the brand, but also I do think her quality is excellent. I recently discovered Pat McGrath like during the whole COVID deal, because I've been like, you know, stuck at home, just like I can't go hang out with friends, so I'm just like, I guess I'll beat my face. I guess I'll like, you know, paint my eyes or whatever, you know? So I've gotten a lot more into like eyeshadow looks. Normally I would be wearing just lipstick, and I'm usually pretty active, like going to the gym and all of that, and lipstick just works really well for me, because like foundation I end up like accidentally touching my face and rubbing it off. And today I'm just doing an eye look, because that's kind of what I've been doing lately. Doing like eyeshadow and then putting in my mask, because like I can show off my eyeshadow, but nobody's gonna see my lipstick if I'm wearing a mask all day. It's been an interesting time of like exploring eyeshadow looks in a time when I normally wouldn't be really doing my eyeshadow much at all. I discovered Pat McGrath this year during shelter in place, when I was watching a lot of YouTube videos and people just kept talking about her stuff. Then I finally caved and bought like a Pat McGrath Mthrship palette, and I love it. I highly recommend Pat McGrath based on what I've tried so far, and I haven't been disappointed with this palette. Today was the first time I tried this. I'm wearing 2 different eye looks right now, but you're gonna get to see the looks all up close and personal soon, because I'm gonna do a tutorial for this eye and then that eye. I tried to use a lot of different shades for both eyes so that you could see what they looked like. Again, this is a very like metallic and shimmer heavy palette with some duochrome. So like, again, if that's not your vibe, then this might not be your jam. I personally love like these colorful looks. I've been doing them a lot in shelter in place and just at home, because it makes me feel like I'm about to go somewhere, even if I'm not going anywhere, even if I'm just gonna watch Schitt's Creek. A lot of these are repeat shades. They're not repeat shades to me because I recently discovered Pat McGrath. Turns out that the Star Wars collection for Pat McGrath that was very limited edition released last year around the holidays. 2 of those palettes are here. So these 6 right here, these 6 are some of the ones that were in one of the Pat McGrath Disney collab for Star Wars palettes. And then these other 6 right here are also one of the other palettes. So there were 2, and so literally here are the 2 palettes right there. If you do already have those, then literally the only new shades you're getting are these 6 right here. So our 6 shades worth $78 to you. I'm gonna leave that one to you. I'm happy I bought this. I think it's worth the money, especially because it's like limited edition, it's holidays. I'm not gonna be buying many holiday collection sort of thing. I did buy one more thing from the makeup collection that just dropped this week, so I haven't gotten it yet. It's one of the quads that she does that I think are in the black lacquer packaging. And I have one of the others that was from last year's holiday collection, and I really like it. It has like her special shades that are usually the like last 4 on the right of her Mthrship palettes. And it's like a special Pat McGrath formula, and it truly is special. I have loved it every time I've used it, and it has definitely been part of what suckered me into the Pat McGrath family, so to speak. There aren't any of those in here, which is something to keep in mind. I know some people were really disappointed about that, but it looks like maybe there's going to be some in those quads. I will do a review of that as well, because I'm really excited to get my hands on it. That's what I have for you guys. I'll show you an eye tutorial, close-ups and all of that good stuff. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, drop me a comment. I love to hear from you guys. And especially, I'm brand new right now. Like, it feels funny being like, hey guys, because I'm like, I got like 20 subscribers. Like, help me bring that up, help a girl out. Like, I'm just getting started and I'm just trying to get like things up and going. I'll stop chatting and get to the makeup. Thanks for hanging out. Okay, so first I'm taking my Too Faced Born This Way multi-use concealer in the color Swan and just dabbing it on my eyelids, and then I'm blending it out with a dry beauty sponge and just blending it all over my lid. And I'm also bringing that up onto my brow bone because I have hooded eyes and I also have a lot of real estate on my brow bone, so I tend to bring colors up kind of high. So in order for it to show up better on my skin tone, I'm blending that lighter color Swan, again, all over my eyelids and a little bit under my eye as well, because I'm going to be bringing some color there and just evening out the skin tone. And because it is lighter than my skin, it's going to help make sure that pigment from eyeshadows really show up on my eyelid. And then I'm going to take some Fenty setting powder and I'm going to just dust off the lid there, oops, and then I'm going to take some on a big fluffy brush and set all of the areas where I put some of the multi-use concealer. I find that doing this right away helps prevent creasing, so I make sure to blend out all of the creases before putting the powder, because if you do put the powder and there is creasing, it will help set those creases and it's a lot harder to blend them out and then it can easily look patchy. So just put on your concealer, blend out the creases, put on that powder when there are no creases, and then you're good to go. Okay, so now on to the fun part, the eyeshadow. And I'm taking the color Venusian Orchid and I am putting that on my crease and I am just lightly blending it. I didn't take too much pigment that first time just because I wanted to get a light wash to kind of lay the base for the rest of the color, and then I keep taking a little bit at a time and really just blending it up into that crease and packing it on to get a little bit more pigmentation. My lights are kind of bright. I'm still working on figuring out what works best, but you can still see that that color is building up nicely and that it is blending very easily. So just continuing to build out that crease. And I tend to take my crease a little bit higher. Again, that is because I have hooded eyes and I need to bring it up a little bit more onto my brow bone because I also have a lot of space up there. I have a pretty poppin' eyebrow bone. So once I have that crease set, which if you can see there, we have some good color going on, I am just going to continue to define the shape a little bit more. Now I'm bringing the color down a little bit onto that outer edge of my lower lash line, doing that to just kind of marry the two together. And you can see I'm kind of doing that like V shape out on the outer edge to kind of connect it. Next, I'm taking the color Venomous Void and I am going to use that to define my crease a little bit more. So here we are, just blending it a little bit into that natural crease area. And you can see that it's bringing a tiny bit more pigmentation. It's a little darker, but again, I started out light and I tend to do that so that I can build up more because it's a lot harder to remove product than it is to add more. So I just keep dipping back into the pan, dusting off my brush a little bit. There is not a ton of fallout in these shadows. And then once again, I'm taking Venomous Void and I am blending that onto my lower lash line. Next, I am taking the color Dragonfly, which is one of my favorite colors in this entire palette. A beautiful duochrome. Green shift, like a bright green shift to a red kind of brown base. And I just tend to apply these colors with my finger because it just really helps the pigment stick to my skin and you don't lose as much as you would if you apply with a brush. You'll see it if you try it at home, but I'm bringing down the light a little bit so that you can see a little bit better. Sometimes the lights kind of blow out duochrome. So anyways, it's still hard to showcase on camera. It's really beautiful in person. It's still coming through a little bit on film, but once you try it in person, I think you'll be really impressed. So there we go, really packed it on with my finger, several layers. Now I'm taking a little brush and also dipping into the pan into Dragonfly and blending it up a little bit more onto my brow bone. Again, because I have hooded eyes, if I just kind of stop on the lid, it's gonna get lost and it's not gonna transition as well, and I'm not gonna have really much on my transition area in the brow bone area. So I tend to bring it up a little higher than maybe most people would, but that's just because of my eye shape. So you can modify this part to however works for you. Maybe just leaving it on the lid is just fine. but for me personally, I like it to be able to peek through. Next, I'm taking the color Odyssey, and I am taking that on a small brush and just popping it on my inner corner highlight area. Next, I am going to take the color Violet Void, and I'm going to take a little angled brush, and it doesn't have to be an angled brush, it's just kind of what I had ready to go. And I am dipping into Violet Void and just packing it on that lower lash line for a little extra pop of color. And because I'm trying to experiment with a whole bunch of different colors from this palette, so you guys get to see kind of what they look like. So as you can see, it's giving a nice little pop of color. It's kind of a cool complement to the sort of green tone that we have going on in the duochrome above on the lid. Then next, I'm going to take an Urban Decay eyeliner in the color Mildew, which is a gross name for a pretty color, but it is a lovely sort of kind of olivey green. So I'm just going to tightline on the bottom. Okay, moving right along, we are gonna take this color Megabyte and put it in the crease area of our other eye for our next eyeshadow look. Now you can see I am blending it in and shearing it out, and it's working pretty well as a transition shade so far. As you can see, it really doesn't actually pack as much of a green punch as I kind of expected. There's another green in a Pat McGrath Mothership, but I don't remember the name of it. And this one reminded me of it in the pan, but in reality, it wasn't as pigmented as I expected, and it kind of sheared out to just sort of a wash of color. I think that maybe if I packed it on with my finger, I would get more. Once again, I am blending it up more into my brow bone, as you can see. It's just so that it shows up since my eyes are hooded. Again, just work with your own eye shape, you know yourself, but remember that with darker colors and things like that, and this is obviously darker than my skin tone, it's pushing it back in space, like shadows and highlights in art. Just keep that in mind. I am taking some of that color Megabyte and blending it onto my lower lash line. I'm going to take the color Fuchsia Shock and place that all over my lid, again, using the application of the finger to maximize pigmentation and payoff. And oh my gosh, it is a gorgeous color. I definitely want to play more with this shade. It was as vibrant as it looked in the pan, which is always great because sometimes in shades like this, they end up shearing out, and I'm disappointed. But yeah, I'm gonna blend that up and a little bit into the crease area. It's a little tough with your finger, but once you practice, you'll get the hang of it. And then I'm also gonna take a brush later and blend it a little bit more cleanly. But now that you see we have the lid covered, we can move on to the next step, which is blending with the brush. So I'm taking a little bit more Fuchsia Shock on the brush, and then I'm gonna bring it up into that crease a little bit more, and then up a little bit more onto the brow bone. Once again, because of my eye shape, I need to bring things up a little bit higher, otherwise they will just get lost in the crease because my eyes are hooded. So when I do look like straight ahead, you see, you know, how that crease is kind of deep, and that brow bone really pops and can lose like a transition shade very easily. Next, I am going to take the color Electron, and I'm going to use a little brush and dip that into Electron and really pack on the product because it can be kind of sheer. That's one of the things that I found. And then I'm just going to smoke that out on my lower lash line and just really keep packing it on because it is a lighter color. It looks lighter than it does in the pan once you apply it. It's pretty reflective too, so especially with my studio lights, it might be a little bit hard for you guys to see exactly what it's looking like, but you can see that kind of like light purple coming through, and it also has some like pink reflect in there. Next, I'm gonna take the color Bronze, and I'm gonna put that in my crease, and I'm gonna blend that up onto the brow bone, and I'm actually gonna bring it a little bit onto the lid as well, and just kind of bring sort of like sunsetty vibe to that whole lid. And I'm just gonna keep bringing it up, and I'm gonna keep packing it on, and then I'm also gonna bring it into that lower lash line to just kind of marry the two looks together. As you can see, this is sort of like a very sunset looking kind of eye, and then I am just making sure that I'm blending my edges as I bring it up and connecting nicely to that lower lash line. You'll also notice that it does cover up most of that green color, but you know, I didn't really come in with a plan, and as I was playing with colors, like, you know, we're figuring it out. Next up, I'm taking the color Gold Standard, which is a very yellow gold, and then I am popping that onto my inner corner highlight. I like to pack it on and then also blend it up a little bit onto the lid and onto the lower lash line. Next up, I'm taking the color Bronze Nebula, and this was a mistake. It turned out to be a lot more orange. I was like, oh crap. That didn't really work. It kind of messed up my gradient that I had going on. And then I brought in a different gold to try to save the situation. And I brought in the color Lunar Champagne, which is a more of a white gold. And then I blended that up onto the brow bone and it did help. But unfortunately, when I had wiped earlier, I did take off some of the product that I had in my gradient. I admit that was a mistake. You can see it. It's not perfect, but we're living and we're learning. I took some eyeliner in a sort of tawny brown color onto my lower waterline. So here are our final looks, you guys. I think that if I were to choose a favorite, it would be the eye with dragonfly. It just came out a lot more blended, and I also think I like the color scheme a little bit better. The other eye, I did mess up on the gradient a little bit. It's not super noticeable here, but I definitely notice it. And I think that maybe if you were to go out in like natural light, people wouldn't really notice, but studio lights are really emphasizing it. Again, I'm just such a sucker for that dragonfly color, and to die for. I put on different highlight for each side of the face. On the side with dragonfly, I put on Fenty Fire Crystal, and then on the other side, I put on Opal by Becca. And I did that because they complemented the different eye looks a little bit better. I hope you guys like them. All right, guys, so that's what I have for you today. I hope it was helpful. Let me know what you want to see in the future. Please drop me a comment. Like I said, like, subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on social. I will link everything below. Let me know what you want to see. If there's any like palette you want to see a tutorial for, I might have it. I don't know. Like I have some more Pat McGrath stuff that I'd like to play around with. I've been playing around with a lot of her special formulas, and I bought a couple of her palettes, so I'm like kind of working through those. And so let me know if you like the Pat McGrath content or if you want something else. I've just been exploring a lot of eyeshadow palettes, like I said, because of like the whole, you know, mask situation that we have going on here, which is good. All for the masks. So let me know if you guys want any tutorials for like, I don't know, mask, like cool eyeshadow masks looks, go-to mask look. I always sit down and I'm like, I'm gonna do a neutral eye today. I'm gonna do a neutral look. I'm gonna do something subtle with like taupe and like brown, and then I end up doing this where I have like sparkle and like a beaming highlight, and then like purple and pink and like or turquoise and all of this stuff, and just I don't know, I just always find myself doing that. So let me know if you do want to see neutral looks ever, because otherwise I just end up playing with color. You guys know where to find me on Instagram at HollyMoxie, HOLLYMOXIE. I'm also on Twitter. You know, I tweet some funny stuff. But if you guys have tried this palette already, let me know your thoughts. I don't know how to end these things, so